This station that we're going to be talking about today is going to cover the 11 comma rules. For the most part, we did a pretty nice job on the comma rules on the check-in. There were just a couple of mistakes, and I think if you were using your notebook, or if you recalled many of our notes that we took over these, you did very well on it. So I'm just going to go through and do a quick refresher on our different types, and then we're going to do some practice examples together. So our different types, we have 11 different rules, which really sounds like a lot, but they are all used and utilized within our English language. So it's really critical that we know why there's a comma there, okay? The first rule is going to have to do with dates. When we're talking about dates, the comma is going to come between the day and the year. So, for example, September 11th, 2001 changed the United States forever. So you'll notice that I have my comma placed between my day and my year. I think this one's very, very easy to recall and remember, and I think we all have that one down pat. Our next rule has to do with addresses, and in this rule, our comma comes between the city and the state. So I live in Chardon, Ohio. That's going to basically be naming a city and a state together. Your comma always comes between the two. For rule number 3, comma comes behind the greeting and again behind the closing. So this is going to be seen in any kind of journal entry, a letter, an email. You're always going to see your comma coming behind your greeting, so dear Susie, or hello, or just a name maybe it's just Susie. You're going to see that comma coming after it. Same thing with your closing. You usually close with thank you or sincerely, or yours truly, and then you're going to put your name. So keep that in mind. And this is another one that we know pretty well. For rule number 4, this has to do with lists, and we do a good job with this one as well. So a comma comes between items of 3 or more that are chronological or in sequence all together. So I wanted pizza, cake, and candy for dinner. So you see that I have 3 different items, pizza, cake, candy. I'm going to have 2 commas, one after my first item, the second one behind my second item. And if maybe I had 4 or 5, I would continually add those commas until I saw my fanboy. For rule number 5, this has to do with the dialogue. This one seems to kind of snag a couple of us. Now the biggest thing is look for quotation marks. If you see quotation marks, these little guys down here, see how they're kind of going around my phrase, I love puppies? If you see those, it's dialogue, okay? So just keep that in mind. Unless maybe it's a song or a title or something like that, in which case you really need to kind of look behind it to see if someone's saying it, okay? So, comma comes before the quotation marks to signal a speaker's direct words. So they're always going to come before them. They're not going to fall behind them. Now, I could rearrange the sentence. Rather than saying, I love puppies, I yelled, I could do it this way and say, I yelled, comma, I love puppies. So in which case, you're still going to have your comma in front of your quotation marks. They may not necessarily be inside of them, but they always come in front of them. Okay, so keep that in mind. Rule number 6 has to do with the positives, and I think we did a very good job the first time we went over these, but just to refresh. A noun that renames the noun, it's a noun that renames a noun that it follows. I should say a instead of the. A noun that it follows. Commas come before it, renaming it, okay? And sometimes it can come after it, so it just kind of depends. So your example, my neighbor Nancy is kind. So my neighbor, comma, Nancy, comma, so it's kind of like they're contained within your 2 commas, okay, giving you more information or renaming it. So I know that Nancy is renaming my neighbors. They're the same thing, just giving me a different name for it. So keep that in mind when you're doing those positives. Okay, after that, we have direct address. A lot of us get direct address confused with just address, okay? But with this one, you're really addressing someone, okay? When directly talking to or addressing a person, a comma comes after the person's name. So that's like, for instance, if I'm talking to my dog Finn, I would say, Finn, comma, why are you laying over there? Okay, so when you're directly talking to the person that you're in a conversation with or referring to them, that's called a direct address. So, Mr. President, comma, it's time to go. So that means I'm talking to Mr. President, and that's why I said his name to get his attention, so I'm using that comma there. For my 8th rule, I have coordinating adjectives. Now with this, it's going to be two modifiers or two words that are describing the same noun, and they're going to have a comma between it. So my example was, the soft, silky fabric felt great. So this works because my adjective soft is going to be modifying the word fabric, and my adjective silky is also modifying fabric. So both of these adjectives are talking about the same noun. Therefore, I can put a comma between them, and that's kind of how it should look typically. Got a couple more here. Rule number 9 has to do with introductories in our transitions. So when we talked about transitions, or if you've done that station already, that's the reason why we have this rule for a comma. So transitions have commas following directly behind them. They always come at the beginning of a sentence. So during the drive, I listened to my favorite song. During the drive is a prepositional phrase. However, since it comes at the beginning of my sentence here, it's going to act as my transition or my introductory statement. Rule number 10, my compound sentences. When you join two independent clauses creating a compound sentence, you have to add a comma before your fanboy. Now, be careful, okay? With this one, sometimes you'll see it without the comma. Like sometimes you'll just see catch the car keys and start the car. Typically you do that because you're missing a subject, okay? So let's look at it this way. Catch the keys, comma, and start the car. So catch the keys could be a sentence all on its own. Start the car could be a sentence all on its own. So that's why those ones can stand on their own. Look for those fanboys for that last rule. And then finally we have interrupters. Interrupters seem to really throw us off as well. The best way to look for interrupters are, you're going to have two commas, okay? And they're going to come in the middle of a sentence and they break up that flow. So think of it almost like a positive where you can like pick it up out of the sentence and it still makes sense. It's the same kind of idea here. You could get rid of your interrupter and it's still going to make sense, okay? So when a word interrupts the flow of a sentence, add a comma before and after the word. My example, I unfortunately cannot attend. So if I took out the word unfortunately, I could just say I cannot attend, and that would still make complete sense. Okay, so you're going to go ahead and look at some examples. So take a look. This is the same exact paragraph that you guys were working on during our check-in yesterday. So we're going to kind of go through and talk about each of them. I just took off the beginning part with my letterheads because I think we all understood that that's why those commas were there, because it was a letter to someone. So it reads, I know that you have to bark at the other dogs when you see them out the window, but it is very annoying. I didn't want to bring this issue to your attention because you are literally the cutest little dog in the world. However, our neighbors, Elliot and Sue, can't stand it. Finn, you need to stop trying to talk to those other dogs. I don't even think they like you. I can tell because the other dogs never come back to visit. I know this is hard to hear, and I'm sorry you're finding all this out through a letter. Since I love you so much, I needed to tell you this. There are so many other things you could be doing, like chewing your bone, playing with your toys, or relaxing. I hope you consider this request. Okay, so when we're doing this, we're going to focus on any kind of comma, and you're going to highlight your comma. So you need a highlighter and you need a pencil. Alright, so if I'm looking, my first comma is going to fall right here. So I'm going to highlight it, and I'm going to take a look and see what the rule is. Okay, now you can use your notes to help you on this if you need to, so you can pull that open. Or if you have the presentation open, you can go ahead and slide back to some of those other slides and kind of go through them. Now you don't want to just write the number, like rule number 5 or rule number 6. You want to tell me what the rule is, okay? That's the easier route to go. So, I know that you love to bark at the other dogs when you see them out the window, but it is very annoying. Okay, so I know I have a fanboy here, and by having that fanboy, this is basically telling me I'm going to be dealing with a compound sentence. So I'm just going to write compound. I'm going to make it very small so that it fits. And you're just going to write it above your comma. Okay, let me get rid of this. There we go. I didn't want to bring this issue to your attention because you are literally the cutest little dog in the world. So I'm going to highlight once again my comma, and then I'm going to look around. So I have cutest, little. Now I know that both of those words are adjectives. Okay, I know that they're both adjectives. Now I need to ask, are they going to be modifying the same noun? So I look behind it. Cutest, dog, okay, that modifies it. Little, dog, that modifies it. So I know that this is going to be a coordinating adjective. I'm just going to do core and adj. And then let me go through once again, change some of these settings so we can see it. So that's what we're dealing with for that one. The next one says, you are literally the cutest little dog in the world. However, whenever I see words like however or unfortunately, I instantly think of an interrupter. So I'm going to take a look. If I took that out, is it going to make sense? I'm going to start from the beginning. I didn't want to bring this issue to your attention because you are literally the cutest little dog in the world. Our neighbors Elliot and Sue can't stand it. So yeah, if I took that out, that's going to be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight those. And I know that that is going to be a interrupter. So I'm going to write interrupt in the box. Okay. Our neighbors, Elliot and Sue, can't stand it. So once again, I have another comma. I have two commas, really. And after looking at my list, I can tell that Elliot and Sue are renaming our neighbors. So if I have a rule that's renaming, I know instantly that we are going to be dealing with the positives. So that's the positive. Finn, you need to stop trying to talk to those other dogs. So Finn, another comma. I know that this is a direct address. I'm directly addressing who I'm talking to here, which is my dog Finn. So that's going to be my best bet. Okay, so what I'm going to have you do is go ahead and go through and finish up labeling each of our comma rules. Okay, you just have a couple more left in this passage. So please, please, please take a look at your notes, utilize those, and go through and label them correctly based off of what we've kind of talked about here. Once you've done that, you're going to take a look at the back side of this page. You have one more passage on here that you're going to do on your own, and you're going to turn this side in for a grade. So you want to make sure that you're using your notes to help you out too. You can use this presentation if you'd like. It can be found on This Week in Class. Okay, if you don't finish it, will be homework. So label and highlight every comma, make sure you don't miss any, and tell me the rule by writing it above. Okay.